Welcome to this new stuff training for Prism Central backup to any S3 and restore to any Prism element. These features are part of the AOS 7.5 release. In previous Prism Central releases, backups of Prism Central itself were limited to Nutanix Objects, Prism Element clusters, and AWS S3. But many customers already use third-party S3 compliant object stores and wanted the flexibility to use their existing infrastructure for backups. Enter AOS 7.5 release, which introduces PC backup support for any S3 compliant object stores. This means now Prism Central can be backed up directly to the S3 storage that already exists in the environment without having to rely on AWS S3 directly. The user can configure backup and restore either using the UI or with the v4 API for S3 compliant object stores. Lastly, this enhancement improves backup flexibility and supports vendor consolidation. Let's look at another key enhancement in this Prism Central 7.5 release, which is the ability to restore Prism Central from a continuous backup to any Prism element cluster. Previously, continuous backup restores were restricted in that you could only restore a Prism Central to a Prism element cluster that was already registered to that Prism Central. As you can imagine, this made recoveries tricky in environments with multiple management clusters, especially when the Prism Central you needed to restore wasn't registered to the target cluster. It also created an inconsistency since S3-based point-in-time backups could be restored to any Prism element cluster, but continuous backups couldn't. So depending on the backup type, your restore flexibility changed. With AOS and Prism Central 7.5, that limitation goes away. You can now restore Prism Central from a continuous backup to any Prism element cluster, no registration required. This aligns continuous backup restores with point-in-time restores, giving you a consistent, flexible recovery experience across both backup types. Here, I would like to highlight how simple it is to set up a backup of Prism Central to any S3 compliant object store. From the Prism Central user interface, you just go into the Prism Central settings from the menu on the left and open the Prism Central Backups page. From there, we choose the point-in-time backup from the top options. Once in the Protect Prism Central widget, this is where you can see a new endpoint type option called Other S3 Compliant Object Store. That's where you can plug in whatever S3 platform your organization already uses. All you have to do from there is provide the usual S3 details, things like the IP or host name, region and bucket name, upload a certificate, and select the desired recovery point objective. And that's pretty much it. It's a very straightforward process. The user experience of this new feature for backup to any S3 compliant object store remains almost identical to what we already support today for Prism Central backups. Once the user configures the backup target details, including the object store details, any required object store certificates, and the desired backup interval, the IDF database will be replicated as a file to the defined S3 compliant object store at the desired recovery point objective or RPO interval. IDF here is a database called Insights Data Fabrics or IDF that stores configuration, periodic performance, and metric data from various components and services of the infrastructure. The main change here really is just to be able to back up to any S3 compliant object store, in addition to being able to back up to Nutanix Objects or AWS S3 as before. Everything else about how Prism Central triggers backups and how we honor the specified RPO intervals stays exactly the same. Let's now go over this high-level visual for restoring Prism Central from continuous backup on any Prism element. We have two Nutanix cloud environments shown here, each of them containing two clusters and one Prism Central. On the left, we have Prism Central 1, and that is managing clusters 1 and 2 and is being continuously backed up to the same. Okay, so on the right-hand side, we have Prism Central 2, and that one is managing clusters 3 and 4, which are being continuously backed up to clusters 3 and 4. Notice that the IDF entity being used here is a database called Insights Data Fabric, and that stores configuration, periodic performance, and metric data from various components and services of the infrastructure. So, in the event that we lost cluster 1, with this new feature, we can now restore Prism Central 1 on cluster 3 if we desired. It is no longer a requirement to restore on cluster 2 where it was previously being continuously backed up. And there you have it. That's how this new feature would essentially work on a high level. As far as caveats and limitations for these features, the only current limitation I would like to highlight is when performing Prism Central backups using other S3 compliant object stores. The S3 object store must run on standard ports 443 or 80. Both of these features, the Prism Central backup to S3 compliant object stores and the recovering Prism Central from continuous backup to any Prism element, are supported starting with AOS 7.5 and PC 7.5. They are included with the NCI starter license and above, and these capabilities are supported on all hardware platforms running AHV or ESXi hypervisors. Thank you for watching the new stuff training for Prism Central backup to any S3 and restore to any Prism element.